It's a warm welcome here in our studio in Serekunda. This is Star TV News and I am Sarah Kamara. In the headlines tonight, Fort Mullen received donation of sanitary materials from National Center for Arts and Culture. Inadequacy of sanitary materials hits Karang border. On COVID-19, Brikama Health Center brace up to tackle plague. Commuters at Banjul Bara Terminal Ferry Crossing worried on the fast spread of COVID-19. And on the international scene, WHO warns Africa to prepare for worse on the COVID-19 virus. Kenyans urge to maintain social distances as lockdown nears. Coronavirus could destroy 10 million US jobs, economics fear. Those were the headlines, and now the news in details. The National Center for Arts and Culture on Saturday provided sanitary materials at Fort Bullen in observing preventive measures of the pandemic coronavirus. Omar Diop was in Bara and now reports.
The hand-washing tank and the sanitary materials were given to the fort in adhering the advice given by health authorities in helping the fight of pandemic coronavirus, as the place is visited by different people from different areas in the country and beyond. The fort, which is named after the British commander in the early 1820s, has become a historical site, mostly visited by school children and the tourists, which is endemic by the COVID-19 global concern. Speaking on behalf of the National Center for Art and Culture, Ibrahim Ajame, the destination manager for Jufre and Albreda destination, praised the effort of the ministry by providing the tanks to their various sites, which includes Fort Bullen in Bara, Jufre Street Museum, and the Information Center in Albreda, among others, to help in preventing the spread of the virus.
In a period of global crisis of the pandemic, that is the coronavirus, COVID-19, so this has become a concern for the ministry and then the National Center for Arts and Culture to supply this to all our sites in order to prevent the people from catching the disease.
Mr. Jammeh noted the effect the pandemic virus caused the site since the pronouncement of the confirmed case in the Gambia, which led to mass reduction of visitors at the site.
Any visitors you come here, you have to wash your hand, and I will start to attend the visitors. Otherwise, maybe you can easily catch up the disease here.
Do it affect your work?
Yeah, why not? Because since almost over 5-6 days, nobody is coming here because the school excursions are closed now and the tourists, they are not coming here. I just come here from morning to 4 o'clock, I close the place. Nobody is coming here. So it's very affected us.
The site attender of Fort Bullen, Ibrahim Mbalo, made a similar remark on receiving the sanitary materials and hoping they will be of good use to the fort. He further stressed the negative impacts the epidemic virus caused the fort, as he just acted like a watchdog to the buildings every day from morning to his closing time. The fort, which was built by the British in 1826 to henceforth become one of the most historical visiting places in the Gambia, and the epidemic coronavirus has taken its function in Scovitune. For Star TV News, I am Omar Diop.
The coronavirus pandemic that threatens global humanity needs global response. Star TV takes a look at how equipped are the Gambia border health officials in preventing infected people from smuggling the virus from neighboring Senegal, where the virus is gaining momentum. Modi El Baji was at the border, and this is his report.
As the movement of people in and out of the country continues, sanitary is a key preventive measure recommended by the World Health Organization (WHO) to mitigate the risks of transporting the virus. But at the Amdalai border, such measures were not visible, especially hand washing. However, commuters are only subjected to temperature checkup. The desk officer at the public health unit at the Amdalai border, Sang M. Jaju, explained why they are not subjecting the commuters to wash their hands.
We have hand washing, of course. Maybe it's just like, it has a small punch, a small hole, but this is the way we are using it even yesterday when, of course, the governor was here. The governor was here yesterday as a delegate. GRTS was here. It was on function. But you cannot also underestimate some, of course, these materials. We are the ones using them. They are also vulnerable. Hence, the environment is very hot here. Everything can happen. And as you can see, it is on maintenance, but it's on functional.
Okay, so is it that the magnitude of the
the intoxicants combined in it caused the burst?
No, it has been here for a long time, even since the time of the Ebola. So if you could look at how the sun is always here and it's packed here, it's not removed from the sun year in, year out. So of course, these are some of the factors that can result its wearing out. But still now is unfunctional. Just of yesterday, even in the morning it was working. Just right now it's just leaking. That we said, let's just remove it for a time, see how best we can mend this leak, this patch. We patch it off, and we continue our normal works.
Mr. Jaju also indicated that they jointly work with the Gambia Police Force, immigration officials, likewise the Senegalese health authorities. Sangani Falgulkuma, a commuter, hailed the efforts of the health service official despite the absence of the hand-washing unit. He also urged Gambians to adhere to the preventive measures. The coronavirus outbreak has propelled the Gambian government to inject $5 million to the Ministry of Health in order for the ministry to equip its health official in combating the virus. Reporting for Star TV, I am Modu Elbaji.
As the coronavirus hit the Gambia, hospitals and institutions have been busy providing appropriate preventive measures and equipment to fight the virus. The Brikama Health Center is not an exception. So what exactly is West Coast Region Major's Health Center doing to tackle this deadly virus? Our reporter Mariama Dem interviewed the officer in charge of the Brikama Health Center on the measures they have taken as a medical center, and this is her report.
The Gambia registered her first corona case on Monday, 17 March 2020, after a Gambian lady in her 20s returned from the United Kingdom. She is reportedly under intensive care by the Gambian health authorities, according to the Minister of Health, Dr. Amadou Samate. The news of the case sent fear and panic amongst Gambians. Therefore, the Brikama Health Center has taken measures to make sure that the virus does not spread across. The officer in charge at the Brikama Health Center, Lamin Sanyang, while speaking to Star TV, explains the measures they have taken in order to prevent COVID-19 from spreading.
By entering the gate, I think you have seen the wash hand basins in place at the gate, and then we also have it inside by our general outpatient, and then we have it our labor ward. We also have it at the general ward. So whoever comes into the facility, you wash your hand first, and then this is not a mere water, it's a water that is mixed with bleach and chlorhexidine. You wash your hand before you enter, and whilst you are in, you also have some spots where you can wash your hand, and if you are going out too, we ask you to wash your hands. So we are encouraging more hand washing and educating people every clinic day before clinic starts. That is what we call health education. So the nurses or the doctors will educate the patients before they start any clinic on COVID-19. We also have an isolation room where we call a holding center. So in case we have any suspected case, before the case is confirmed to be moved to either MRC, we have that holding center here where we keep these suspected person.
He added that they have a surveillance team that are dispatched at the borders to screen people entering the country. He also said they have GS put in place for easy communication in case of any suspected case. Many people use face masks to prevent themselves from the virus, but Mr. Sanyang advises against such.
What I can tell them is, okay, mask is preventive, but the way people are using it may be wrong. I think there needs to be more education on that, because you cannot just put on that mask 24/7, a single mask. If this is where you are sneezing, this is where you are coughing, I hope you might end up infecting yourself. Maybe not even with COVID-19, but you might be giving yourself respiratory tract infection. To me, mask is when you are attending to a suspected case or an infected case, then you put on the mask at least to prevent yourself. You give the patient and you take yourself, at least so that that contact barrier will be there, so that you will not infect yourself. But not per se wherever you are, you just put on the mask. I think people need to be educated on it.
Meanwhile, a group of young people from Brikama donated sanitary items to the hospital in response to the coronavirus. John Dur, a native of Brikama, says, as a citizen, this donation is expected of him during hard and trying times like this.
I feel like I should play my quota towards the development of the country. This gift was initiated by me, John Dur. We organized a march sometime last month, 18 February, Independence Day. and there was at least a small token of money which I realized from the gate takings. So I decided to buy some things to bring it to the hospital.
However, on Sunday, March 22nd, the Minister of Health, in a televised statement on GRTS, revealed that a man in his 70s from Bangladesh tested positive of the COVID-19. He came to the Gambia through Senegal as a preacher. He died in an ambulance after being referred to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. Samples were collected, sent to the MRC, and the results were delivered and was confirmed to be positive. This is possibly the first death from corona in the Gambia. However, what is not clear is how many people that man came in contact with since his arrival in the country. Mariam Adem, reporting for Star TV News.
At the Banjul Barra ferry crossing point, the commuters who travel from Banjul to Barra back and forth said their fear of contracting the novel coronavirus. They said their views on how the officials at the ferries should sensitize the people traveling back and forth on ways to prevent themselves from contracting the virus. Jacqueline Curry was in Barra and she now reports.
Since the Ministry of Health confirmed its first case of COVID-19 in the Gambia, it has caused some panic among citizens. Alhaji Seka, who travels frequently using the crossing point, says he is following the instructions given by the health personnel to help prevent the virus. But he added that one of the instructions that says a person should be distant to another by 1 centimeter is a major challenge for him, considering the fact that he uses public transport frequently. He said the ferry and other transport means are not advisable during these times, but one needs transportation to go on about their daily activities, so it is unavoidable. He advised the people to be washing their hands frequently, which is a major key, and using hand sanitizers containing 60% of alcohol. At the Barra point of entry, a youth and resident of Barra, Umar Jallo, fondly known as Oja, was seen sensitizing the public with a loudspeaker and a dumpster on his mini truck, shouting, "Wash your hands and save yourself from the virus." He said many a times he has seen the security and the Red Cross on the entry point forcing other people to wash their hands before entering the building, but they usually resist from doing so. He advised the people to work with the securities and the health personnel to help prevent the virus, for it is spreading rapidly. As George, a Senegalese residing in the Gambia, said the virus is dangerous, but one should not fear the virus because to him, God is greater than any other form of virus. He said the only way to prevent ourselves from the virus is to obey the preventive measures given by the World Health Organization. He added that all borders should be closed to avoid the rapid spread of coronavirus. Jacqueline Coley, reporting for Star TV News.
A press release for Attorney General and Ministry of Justice informed that following the President's statement on 18 March 2020 regarding the coronavirus pandemic around the world, as declared by WHO, a proclamation was issued and published on the Gazette on the same day pursuant of Section 34(1)(b) of the 1997 Constitution, declaring that a situation exists in the Gambia which, if it is allowed to continue, may lead to a state of public emergency. Furthermore, pursuant of Section 34(2) of the 1997 Constitution, and considering that the National Assembly is not currently in session, the said declaration shall last for an initial period of 21 days from 18 March 2020. The public is strongly encouraged to cooperate fully with state authorities, particularly medical personnel, and to follow their advice as the country prepares itself to deal with the potential serious consequences of the pandemic. The release ends. And now, news beyond our borders. The World Health Organization has warned African countries to prepare for the worst. More than 1,000 people have been diagnosed with COVID-19 in 42 countries across the continent. Al Jazeera's Rahila Muhammad now takes a look at how other African nations are responding.
Until recently, most countries in Africa had escaped the worst of the coronavirus pandemic. Now cases are rising across the continent. Many countries like South Africa are taking similar precautions as the rest of the world, cancelling international flights, closing schools and land borders. In Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation of nearly 200 million people, schools have shut and there's a limit to religious gatherings.
You can see the number of worshippers that were in the mosque today are not up to the 1/3 of the normal congregation due to our sensitization, talking to the people to understand the situation.
Mauritania's normally busy capital is quiet, with authorities imposing a nighttime curfew to encourage social distancing. Nations like the Democratic Republic of Congo have dealt with a health crisis before. The most recent Ebola outbreak there killed thousands of people. This time, its president is taking no chances, calling for bars and restaurants to close. But casual workers who don't earn a lot may lose their jobs.
No customers come today, and there's no point in setting tables.
The ban on international travel and sports events is affecting people in Zimbabwe. Punters here say with sports games cancelled, fewer people are turning up to betting houses. And street vendors in this township say they have no choice but to work. Some are worried about what is to come.
We've had outbreaks of cholera, typhoid in the past years, and we've struggled to overcome those. And I'm just seeing the news around the world about how the US and Italy are coping with the coronavirus, and I'm not too sure if Zimbabwe is prepared for this.
With more than 20 cases reported in Cameroon, hospital staff in Douala are preparing for the worst. And demand for hand sanitizer is growing. But despite measures put in place to limit large crowds, some streets are still busy. Cameroonians are calling for tougher controls.
The government must take tough action against stubborn people. I'm a shopkeeper and I respect the standards. I try to keep things clean and avoid big markets.
In Kenya, health workers have been disinfecting local markets. But the World Health Organization says African countries need to do more to enhance their capacity to detect the virus early, isolate and track patients. Rahila Mohammed, Al Jazeera.
Kenya is edging towards a lockdown as the number of coronavirus cases rise to 15. The government is suspending all its international flights from Wednesday and has ordered pubs and restaurants to remain closed. Kenyans are also being urged to take social distancing seriously. But that is a problem in a sprawling informal settlement where people have no room to isolate or even access to running water. Al Jazeera's Catherine Soy reports from the capital, Nairobi.
Many of the conversations in Nairobi, the epicenter of COVID-19 in Kenya, are about the disease. The government has restricted international travel and closed schools and universities. Kenyans advised to wash hands regularly, stay home if possible, and avoid large gatherings. But doing that in makeshift slum housing is nearly impossible. Areas where millions of people call home, many sharing single-room shacks, have few spaces to isolate or enjoy the luxury of working from the house. Most live on less than $2 a day.
This is one of the most densely populated areas in the city. People here are not just worried about the disease and how it may affect them, but also how they will survive with no money to feed their families or even enough water to regularly wash their hands.
Hadija washes clothes for a living. She shares 2 rooms with more than 10 orphans in the sprawling Mathare slum. Her biggest concern right now is finding water. In normal circumstances, she uses 80 liters a day, costing around $4. Some non-profit organizations are setting up water points, but they're not enough.
We get government water only thrice a week, which we have to go and fetch at water points. They tell us to wash our hands all the time. We want to, but without constant water supply, what can we do?
Isaac Mutesia, who lives in Mathare, recorded the hustle and bustle in the slum for Al Jazeera following the introduction of the government's health restrictions. He tells us disease is rife, including the common flu, which poses a problem.
Even now, many people have the flu. Children are always coughing. It's a common thing and difficult to tell if it's corona or not. There is nowhere here where we can get tested. It's very hard for the residents to go to big hospitals in town. Instead, they self-medicate.
The government is testing people with symptoms and their contacts, as well as starting random tests in targeted areas. But medical experts are urging preparations for mass testing should the disease start spreading quickly.
We need to have a lot of people trained on testing. That is number one. Number two, we also need to expand our testing facilities beyond where we are now.
Doctors say they hope to minimize the spread of COVID-19 to areas such as Mathare, where some of the most vulnerable Kenyans live. But Hadija and others here want more preventative measures now to keep them safe. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Nairobi, Kenya.
In the United States of America, measures being imposed to stop the coronavirus are having a devastating impact on workers. With the food, hospitality, and entertainment industry being hit particularly hard, many American workers are taking to the internet to share their stories. Al Jazeera Andrew Chappell reports.
Yes, I do. The lead singer of a country rock band, Zach Brown, shared this message with fans.
I've had to let go of about 90% of my family.
Explaining why tour dates have been canceled and why he had to let go of most of his crew. Across the U.S., performance artists and those behind the scenes are suddenly without work. That includes 95% of performers and staff from Cirque du Soleil. The entertainment company's revenue last year was just shy of $1 billion, a number that's dropped to zero, according to its CEO.
C'est une décision extrêmement difficile.
Unfortunately, this decision is our only option, as we are forced to position ourselves to weather this storm and prepare for eventual reopenings.
A hard sell for those who've just lost their only source of income.
Got laid off from my job due to the coronavirus.
These kinds of posts are increasing by the day from recently dismissed employees. Many are sharing their stories online, but also to get advice about applying for unemployment benefits in their state.
Florida. Wife is a hotel manager and was told she needs to take unpaid weeks coming up.
Just got sacked. I thought I would be safe as I'm in accounting, but we are in the hospitality industry, so I sort of understand.
I got laid off today. On the drive home, I got a text from my partner saying her company is filing for bankruptcy. Quite the day.
The largest hotel chain in the world, Marriott International, is planning to temporarily dismiss tens of thousands of workers, sending them home without pay.
COVID-19 is having a more severe and sudden financial impact on our business than 9/11 and the 2009 financial crisis combined.
The hotel industry in the U.S. is seeking $150 billion in relief from the government.
Everything one by one. Dallas and Vegas.
Some sectors of the economy are collapsing. Wall Street investment firm Goldman Sachs issued a dire forecast on Friday, saying U.S. GDP may shrink by 24% in the second quarter of this year. Sports and entertainment spending may decline by 85%, according to economic forecasts. Millions of Americans could lose their jobs in the months ahead. Empty hotels, empty arenas, and empty theaters. 120,000 workers in the film industry are already out of work in Hollywood, according to one labor union, and millions of people will be forced to temporarily switch careers to make ends meet. But there is good news. Some companies are hiring, including the world's top 2 retailers. Amazon's adding 100,000 workers in the U.S. to meet the surge in demand from those now staying at home, while Walmart's adding 150,000 temporary workers. Whether stocking shelves, delivering food, or figuring out how to make those face-to-face interactions online, America's service sector is being transformed. Andrew Chappell, Al Jazeera.
Lebanon's army has been brought in to help enforce a public lockdown as cases of the virus rise across the country. At least 248 infections and 4 deaths have been confirmed. The government is already grappling with a financial crisis, and now it has been criticized for its handling of this one as well. Al Jazeera's Zena Kot report from Beirut.
The army and security forces have been called in to enforce a lockdown declared by the government and largely ignored by many Lebanese. Concerns grew after a rapid rise in the daily coronavirus infection rates. Movement is now severely restricted.
We can no longer contain the virus. We will head into the unknown if every citizen doesn't take the necessary measures.
It's been nearly a week since the authorities sealed Lebanon's borders. They had already closed the public and private sectors as well as educational institutions. But the pace of infections hasn't slowed.
The relatively unsatisfactory degree of compliance in the streets makes the state of emergency more likely to be declared. I believe that the cabinet has been avoiding to declare a curfew because it would entail a number of harsh measures that would definitely narrow certain rights.
Lockdowns are harsh for the poor and informal workers who rely on daily wages. And in Lebanon, they are not being compensated.
Every man who has a family has to go out and provide for his kids. In all countries, when a state of emergency is declared, the government helps them medically and socially.
An unprecedented economic and financial crisis is only worsening. It is believed that at least 200,000 jobs have been lost in recent months. People here are blaming the government for avoiding its obligations.
By laws and by international practices, when a government declares a curfew, it has the obligation to provide its people with needed basic needs and a monthly installment for them to be able to sustain.
The state is nearly bankrupt. Many blame the political class for mismanagement and corruption, but a movement to topple those in power is also on hold, as efforts focus on containing the pandemic. Lebanon's government is being criticized for failing to deal with the economic and social impact of the health crisis. The United Nations says policies are needed so the burden does not fall on those who can least afford it. Prime Minister Hassan Diab acknowledged that the tighter measures will hurt the economy, but he said the priority is to save people's lives. Authorities don't want to overwhelm ill-equipped and underfunded health facilities, but they've lost the battle to contain the virus. It's now about limiting its impact. In the words of the Interior Minister, the worst is yet to come. Zana Khudar, Al Jazeera, Beirut.
And before we end the news, a recap of our main headlines. Fort Mbolen received donation of sanitary materials from National Center for Arts and Culture. Inadequacy of sanitary material hits Karang border. On COVID-19, Brikama Health Center braced up to tackle the plague. Commuters at Banjul Bara Terminal Ferry crossing worried on the fast spread of COVID-19. WHO wants Africa to prepare for worse on the COVID-19 virus. Kenyans urge to maintain social distancing as lockdown nears. Coronavirus could destroy 10 million US jobs, economists fear. That's all for this edition of the news. Please enjoy the rest of our programs and join us tomorrow for more news. Thank you.